Gang, what's up? Aaron here, Canadian Looney. We've got Andrew Scheer, House Leader of the Conservatives, exposing Mark Carney and his crony Liberals. Let's take a peek. We've got Pierre Poilievre to follow that up, Jamil Jivani coming up after that, and then we've got to end it all off, Mark Carney. He's a wreck. Let's get into this. Andrew Scheer has a lot to say.
So it's becoming pretty clear that the government is going to use their costly budget as an excuse for costly elections. But there is an alternative. They could bring in what Conservatives are calling for, and that is an affordable budget for an affordable life for Canadians. It's quite clear the government doesn't want to, Mark Carney doesn't want to be held accountable for all his broken promises, so he's trying to distract from the fact that his costly deficits are driving up costs for Canadians, driving up prices, making life much more expensive for hardworking Canadians. Conservatives have a different approach. We have an optimistic, hopeful approach for the future where a government presents an affordable budget that will make life affordable for Canadians.
Mr. Scheer, we're coming up on the budget, and the government's about to hand billions of dollars to 3 new special operating agencies that they have developed to do big projects, housing, defence, procurement, etc. The government, however, won't make public the framework agreements that are going to govern those agencies. Any thoughts on that, and whether the government should be making public those documents?
Well, we've seen this track record before from this government. Massive new costs that drive up the cost of living for Canadians without any transparency or accountability. So we'll see what they actually propose. But Conservatives are going to continue to fight for a government that presents an affordable budget for an affordable life for Canadians. The only way to get a grip on the cost of living crisis is to undo the Liberal policies that caused it in the first place. So we've proposed concrete ideas to help bring grocery prices down. We hope the government accepts that. So that's what we're going to be pushing for the next few days.
This idea that the Liberals aren't negotiating, I mean, you're not going to obviously betray confidences, but is there any good faith sign from the government that they don't want an election? Like anything, any carrier pigeons, like anything are they doing that?
Well,
you want them to do, but I'm asking, like, behind the scenes, is there any cross the floor conversations that are happening?
Well, I believe that that the government would like to use the excuse to hide from the fact that they have not been able to deliver on their promises, to not be held account for that. So we'll see in the next few days. We're going to keep fighting for that affordable budget. It really is the only way to make life more affordable for Canadians. Every dollar that the government spends, it takes out of the pockets of Canadians, and every dollar that every deficit dollar that it spends drives up inflation, drives up costs. That's why it's so essential that we fight for that affordable budget, and we're going to keep doing that for the next few days. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. We're going to pop over to the House of Commons floor to watch Pierre Poilievre mop the floor with House Leader of the Liberals, Stephen MacKinnon. House Leader of the government, I guess. He's a really clammy-looking, creepy man. Let's take a peek.
The Prime Minister put partisanship aside and work with us on an affordable budget for an affordable life.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, happy days, Mr. Speaker. There will be an affordable budget for an affordable life presented in this House on November 4th. And we certainly hope the opposition leader will order his troops to vote for it instead of ordering the very nervous ones to vote against it and cause a very expensive Christmas election here in Canada. Will the opposition leader tell his very nervous troops to vote for our affordable budget on November 4th?
There he goes, trying to use a costly budget to trigger a costly election. And we know what he wants to distract from the fact that this Prime Minister has broken every promise he's made by triggering a costly election on a costly budget. But, Mr. Speaker, Canadians shouldn't have to choose between a costly budget and a costly election. They can choose an affordable budget with an affordable life. And we're putting forward the proposals on how to do that, like eliminating the industrial carbon tax on our farmers who feed us. Will they take our positive, collaborative ideas for an affordable budget and affordable life? Yes or no?
We'll drop in on Jamil Jivani now, one of our favorite MPs to watch on here. He has common sense, and he doesn't like the reverse tactics that the Liberals are using. None of it makes any sense to me either. Let's take a listen.
It's out of control, guys. You remember there was a time where we thought a just society is one where the government treats all people, all citizens equally and fairly? In fact, a lot of our history is made up of people fighting to convince the government to treat everyone the same. And yet that's not what's happening in Ottawa right now. This form of liberal racism is actually undermining what we know to be true in our hearts, which is that we should not judge people for what they look like or where they come from. It is now government policy, mainstream government policy, to judge Canadians based on what they look like or where their parents come from. We know this is wrong. This is what liberal racism does. It makes you think that what you know in your heart is actually not what you should expect from the government. They convince you that it is okay to take identity groups and rank them on victimhood. And depending on what you look like or where you come from, you might be at the top of the victimhood ladder, you might be at the bottom of the victimhood ladder. And based on that, the government decides whether you can get a job or whether you can access government programs. It's messed up. And you know it's messed up. I don't even need to convince you this. You know deep down inside it's messed up. And yet, here we are having to talk about liberal racism, a type of racism that excludes certain people from programs and jobs while stamping other identity groups as inferior. And you should be offended for both reasons. I want to give you some practical examples of what's happening here in Ottawa so you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Let's start with jobs. The federal government is one of the biggest employers in the country, one of the biggest for all industries and educational backgrounds. And when they hire people, you go on Google right now and you'll see, you type in federal government jobs, Canada. You'll find a job list. You'll find job application opportunities. And in almost every, if not every single one of them, there is language that tells you very clearly that they are going to judge your job application based on what you look like and where you come from. Let's give you some examples. I just pulled these up a few hours ago. Corporate services analyst. Sounds like an important job. They ask in the job application for you to self-declare if you belong to a, quote, employment equity group. Geographic information systems technician. Also sounds important. Asks in the job application for you to self-declare belonging to a designated identity group. Civilian ammunition technician for national defense. Asks you to self-declare belonging to a designated identity group. Well, what does that mean? That means two things. One, the federal government is telling our own citizens that if you are in the bottom of the victimhood ladder that they've created, you might not even get considered for a job. No matter how hard you work, no matter how much education you have, no matter your job experience, they're telling you in the application they're going to judge you based on what you look like. But if you are at the top of that victimhood ladder, what is the government telling you? They're telling you that they might not hire you because of how smart you are. They might not hire you because of how capable and talented you are. They might hire you just because they want to check a DEI box. Both of those things are troublesome. As people who believe every person should be judged fairly and equally, every opportunity should be given to those who earn it. And if it is given to a member of a minority group, that person should not be stamped by the government with a mark of inferiority. It's simply not right. This is liberal racism in action. But it gets even worse. It's not just about individual jobs. We're talking about government programs funded with your tax dollars. I'll give you some examples. You and we already know there's a housing crisis in this country. People across the board struggling to afford a home. And what does the federal government do? Puts tens of millions of dollars into a program through the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. And that program is going to help hundreds of families buy a house, but only if they are the right color. Does that sound right to you? Does that sound fair or equal to you? It doesn't. You know that. And yet the federal government here in Ottawa is using your tax dollars to fund programs like that. Another example, We know lots of businesses are struggling in this economy. Small and medium-sized businesses trying to access capital so they can survive economic uncertainty, so that they can grow their business, create opportunities and jobs. The Economic Development Department in the federal government has put $189 million toward helping businesses access capital. But again, only if the business owner is the right color. There's nothing fair about that. Local Food Infrastructure Fund. Sounds like a good idea, $63 million to strengthen community food insecurity. We know lots of people are struggling at the grocery stores right now to pay these high grocery bills. But this $63 million of your taxpayer money only designated for what the government deems equity deserving groups. Not fair, not equal. You see the pattern here? There is something very insidious about this, where the government is trying to convince you that they deserve the power to decide, based on what you look like and where you come from, who needs help in this economy, who needs help buying a house, which business owners need help. And they want the people who are part of the right identity groups to be thankful for being treated in such a patronizing manner. And they expect the people who are being excluded from this help, excluded from these jobs and these programs, to just keep their mouths shut and accept that. This is not what justice looks like. This is not what every person in our history who fought for equality and fairness fought for. This is liberal racism, and it is out of control. It is seen as normal when you walk the streets of Ottawa, when you walk across the street from my office here into Parliament. And I talk about this, people act like, what do you mean liberal? This is liberal racism. We need to confront this stuff. There's possibly no greater offender of liberal racism than academia, where universities have embraced liberal racism with full confidence, full enthusiasm. You can find an Aristotle Foundation report from earlier this year. They looked at the 10 biggest universities in Canada. Out of 489 job ads, 477 of them, which is 98%, included some kind of DEI requirement or strategy. Academia, supposedly the most educated people in our country, and they have embraced liberal racism without any self-reflection or hesitation. The federal government gives out $310 million per year to universities for Canada Research Chairs. That program, very strict gender and race quotas. As I said, you know in your heart what a just society looks like. And that just society is one where people are treated fairly and equally. When I say we must end liberal racism, this is what I mean. Let's get back to what makes Canada an awesome place, where we can talk about unity and prosperity for all of our citizens, and we can reject the liberal victimhood ladder. Let's restore the North.
Oh, yeah. We're going to finish off with Mark Carney, our Prime Minister con man, who is ignoring all the issues Canada has, traveling around the world, spending money that's not his, that we don't have, causing more inflation, smiling away. Wake up, folks. Mark Carney is a con man. Listen to this foolishness. Explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, or like you don't want me to understand. What is he doing?
Institutions on which we as middle powers have long relied. It makes ASEAN more important than ever. And it underscores the importance of reliable partners who honor their commitments, who are there in tough times, and when things are not working, who work collaboratively to fix them. And again, I want to commend you, Chair, and in brokering the peace agreement that was announced this morning. A future determined by commitment, not circumstance, again to quote. And colleagues, I would like to just underscore that Canada can be and is such a partner. Let me give an example. A few days ago, I announced our plan to double our non-U.S. exports over the course of the next decade. That's more than $300 billion in new trade, much of which we hope will be with this group. We think we can do that because we have much of what the world wants. We're an energy superpower in both clean and conventional. We expect within the next 5 years to produce and export 50 million tons of LNG every year to Asia, and to double that within 10 years from then. We have domestically an electricity grid that is 85% clean. We will expand that by 50% over the next decade, including with new forms of nuclear power, small modular reactors. We're one of the largest, blessed with one of the largest resources of critical minerals and rare earths, just like many around the table. And part of our partnership offer is to work with you on financing and developing that, including through what we formed a critical mineral alliance, which can provide a secure buyer for these resources so that you can develop them over time. In other words, to be part of the solution. With respect to defense, AI, cyber, just to give context, we are quadrupling our spending on defense in the next 5 years. Much of that will be in the realms of cyber security, artificial intelligence, and the interactions. This is an area where our cooperation is ideal. Let me conclude by just underscoring one thing with respect to trade. President Prabo, thank you. We concluded a historic trade agreement, our first bilateral free trade agreement with an ASEAN partner, with speed and with ambition. This reflects what we want to do as a government. We will bring the same commitment to bilateral discussions with any of you who are interested, but very importantly, and this is something I wanted to underscore, we would like to complete the negotiations of the Canada-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement over the course of next year's presidency. President Marcos, we discussed earlier. We will put all the resources in. And finally, to supplement your work on digital, on clean tech, and on energy wherever we can, because this is the form of reason and respect. This is the form of inclusivity and sustainability, and we are keen to contribute in any way we can. Thank you very much.